What should a government do to reduce crime and to persuade criminals that they shouldn't break the law? Bill O'Reilly thinks he knows.
Imposing harsh mandatory prison time, 25 to life for rapists. That's why you need mandatory sentences.
Mandatory. Lots of legislatures agree with him, and there are now almost 200 mandatory minimum sentences in the federal criminal code. In the state code, there are more. In Florida, if you're caught with 7 illegal pain pills, you get 3 years minimum. 15 years if you've got 22 pills, 25 years if you're caught with 44. I find this hard to believe, but Karen Garrison and Greg Newbern say it's absolutely true. Newbern is director of the Florida Office of Families Against Mandatory Minimums. Karen Garrison's sons were locked up for more than a decade because of mandatory minimums. So, Karen, what were they accused of doing?
1 count conspiracy of cocaine. And there were no drugs, no guns. My sons went to school every day. They never missed a day in college.
Well, they were convicted of intent to distribute cocaine in the specific amount, 10 kilograms, and crack, 500 grams. The prosecutors must have had some evidence.
Well, prosecutors is the key. They're powerful. They created something called a conspiracy and put them in it. No drugs, no guns were found at my property. Even they were tested the moment they were arrested, and they didn't have drugs in their system.
Well, so where were the guns and drugs?
Well, they belonged to other people in the conspiracy that my sons didn't even know. The one guy, Tito Abea, the informant that was a lead informant, made up this story and included my sons.
Greg, this is typical?
It is typical, and Karen's case is representative of the phenomenon generally. When you have low-level offenders or people who maintain their innocence, they're the ones who tend to go to trial, and they're the ones who tend to get the mandatory minimum at sentencing. The people who know they're guilty, the people who commit a crime, they get caught, they say, hey, I know I've done this, I know I'm guilty. They take a plea deal, and often they get out well before the people who maintain their innocence.
They get out sooner if they can say, I know a guy who's doing it, and implicate somebody else.
Sure, it's what's called providing substantial assistance. So if I'm part of a criminal conspiracy...
Snitch, being a snitch.
Yes, exactly. If I'm part of a criminal conspiracy and I can give somebody else up, then I'll get less time. The irony of this is the unintended consequence is the people who are at the top of a criminal conspiracy have the most information. They run to the prosecutors, they cut a deal, and they get lower sentences. The people at the bottom, the people who don't know anything, less culpable, lower-level offenders, don't have the information, can't cut the deal, and they end up serving obscenely long sentences.
Scott Earl served 25 years. He's addicted to Vicodin. And what happened?
He had back surgery. He got addicted to painkillers. He met someone at a bar. That person said, I would love to have some painkillers, kept hounding him, and he said, no, I can't help you.
She turned out to be an
undercover police officer. In the end, he set up deals for her to get pills. He never sold them, never made any money off the transactions. He was arrested, charged with trafficking, and now he's serving 25 years mandatory minimum.
And the judge said, this punishment does not fit the crime. With great reluctance, I have to sentence the defendant to 25 years.
That's a common reaction from judges. They look at the circumstances of the crime and they say, there's no way this sentence fits, and yet I have to do it because the legislature has given me no other option.
Advocates for these minimums would say, good, we're safer. Better to lock them up.
There's absolutely no evidence that mandatory minimums contribute to a decline in the crime rate. None whatsoever. There is no correlation.
Some states have gotten rid of their minimums and crime hasn't shot up.
Absolutely. New York repealed the Rockefeller drug laws in 2009. Crime is down. Michigan repealed all of their drug mandatory minimums in 2003. Crime has fallen 20%.
Robert Moss sold marijuana for a while, then stopped selling it, got out of the marijuana business. But when his ex-partners were caught, they tried to reduce their sentences by ratting Moss out. Moss wouldn't snitch on anyone, and as a result was sentenced to 20 years in jail. Here's one of his 2 daughters.
I was born 10 days after my dad went to prison. I'm now 12 and a half, and I'm still waiting.
A few years after that was taped, their father was finally released.
I had never felt normal in my entire life. I always felt like there was something missing, and I didn't want people to think I had daddy issues, you know?
Because we don't. We have government issues.
We have government issues.
These children grew up without a father at home. And for what? For what?
And you got the law changed in Florida.
Yeah, and a lot of groups with mandatory minimums, working for mandatory minimums like FAM. They never gave up. They went every day till they got a small reduction, but they keep on.
The change helped knock more than 3 years off your son's sentence.
Yeah, well, it's like 4 off of Lamont's and 2 off of Lawrence's sentence.